to They Come with Instructions podcast, where we share biblical principles for real life matters. I am Renee Anderson. I am your host. I am a mother, I'm a mentor, and I am a friend. I'm also the author of the book entitled the same, They Come with Instructions, Biblical Principles for Raising Children. Today, I am super excited because we are speaking with one of my most favorite people in the whole wide world. She and I met in 1982, and for some reason that sounds better to say than over 40 years ago. So she knows more of my secrets than anyone on this planet, and she still loves me in spite of and celebrates me despite all that she knows. She gives the best hugs in the whole wide world, better than anyone you will ever meet. So if you are ever in need of a mama hug, look her up because I'm telling you, them hugs are healing. Please help me welcome my friend Schinaeh Turner. Woo! Welcome,
Thank you,
welcome,
thank you,
welcome.
thank you, thank you.
Thank you for coming to They Come with Instructions, the podcast. We are launching into something new, and you support me in everything. So thank you for coming to do
I
this
am
with me too.
excited. I am so excited. I am very, very proud of you, and I am very happy for you. I'm glad that you are following God's vision that He had for you, and He has given you so much. And so I'm very grateful to be a part of it.
Thank you. You're the reason why I can do these things because you always like, go, go, do it, go, go. So here I am. We have so much in common. We both have 4 sons. Did you ever try or want a girl? Because I was kind of like, but did you?
Okay, so I am gonna, this is a story since you
Okay.
asked me that question. I initially said I wasn't going to have any children, but then I told God, I just want one daughter. I just want one girl. I don't want any more children than that, just one girl. And I tried 4 times for her and she just never came. So I have 4 sons. But God always knows what we need, better than we do
Mhm.
because He already knew she was going to be a absolute mess. I was going to completely spoil her. I thought I was going to have a mini me. We were going to be so close, and that's how my life was going to play out. Nobody was going to be able to tell me or her anything. And so he didn't give her to me.
He knows what we
He
need,
knows
and
what we need.
so much for us telling him
Yes.
what we want, right? That is so funny because you tried 4 times to get a girl and never. So now, as much as you feel comfortable, share people, kind of your story because, primarily we are, single parents, moms, dads, but you are no longer a single parent. So kind of tell us where it started and as much as you're comfortable with.
Right. So I am no longer a single parent. I'm going to kind of start with that. I do have a blended family. I had 4 children, 4 sons, and then my husband had 4 children, 2 sons and 2 daughters. And at one point when we first got married, we've been married now for 21 years, though, they all lived with us. So that was very interesting in doing that. And going from being a single mother, the hardest thing I think for all of us is to get rid of that independent spirit. And most women who are single have it, and so that transition can be difficult. But I had my first son. I was young, and things didn't work out with me and his dad because he got incarcerated, and I always knew I was not going to live that life. I Unfortunately, I had some relatives that kind of, I didn't know them very well because they would go in and out, and so I already knew how that affected their children and even our family. So I gave someone an opportunity, and when they went in, I said, no, I'm done. That's not going to be my life. That's not going to be my story
Mhm.
for this son that was supposed to be a daughter that I had.
But I'm not bitter.
Right? I'm not
I'm
bitter.
okay.
And so, but I was also grateful for my when I had my son, again, God knows, you know, us better than we do, because I had lost a brother. And so when my son came, he was about maybe 4 years after the death of my brother. And so, of course, my mom, the whole family just welcomed this boy, And so, again,
Not to mention he looked a lot like your brother too.
yes, and I named him his middle name. So yes, and their birthdays are also close together. So he acts a
Looks like him, acts like him.
yes, and
Yeah.
so but so becoming a single mother, I met my ex husband while I was at work, and my son was still really an infant. He was still young. He was maybe 5 months old, and at the same time, I had lost a family member and he had lost a family member, and we bonded with that. So he was with me with my oldest sons, all the first Thanksgivings, Christmases, helped me plan, first birthdays and all of that.
Now let me stop right there and hold
Hmm.
that thought because I learned a term last night called trauma bond. Have you heard
Mm,
of that? Trauma
no,
bond. And what you describe is just that, where people bond over trauma
right.
and connect. And the relationship most time, because it's trauma, is
Hmm.
built on something unhealthy and doesn't really last, but people find connectivity
Right,
in that and yeah, stay connected, and they probably shouldn't. But anyway, okay, I digress. But when you said that, I was like, oh, example of
right.
trauma bond. Ah,
Right.
okay, I'm
Well,
sorry.
we thought it was healthy.
Hmm.
There were other things though that we didn't consider. So I am a black African American,
Hmm.
and he is, because he's still alive. He's Mexican, and so our cultures ended up clashing.
Hmm.
As big as with his family, not mine, because we have multiracial, biracial in my family. So my family, it was no big thing, but with his, it was, and the fact that I had already had a child.
Hmm.
But we still continued our relationship. We got engaged, got married. Then we had our son. So
Hmm.
that was my second son. But because of the racial tension at that
Hmm.
time, to be now Black African American women don't mind dating out their race.
Hmm.
But back then, it was hard for women. Men did it,
Hmm.
but women really didn't.
Right.
And so, and he had a hard time because uh, other people were making comments about it
Hmm.
with him.
Influences.
Yes, and so he would make jokes and different things, and so it was just very difficult. I didn't think that was one of our main reasons. The other things that happened in our relationship, I could have handled, but the racial divide, I could not,
Wow.
and it took a long time. I mean, it's our son's story, but
Hmm.
even for him, it made life very difficult for him,
Wow.
and so
So that was around in the 90s or late 80s?
in the
In
90s,
the
in
90s.
the
Okay.
early 90s. So we were married in 92. Our son was born in 93, and my oldest son was born in 90, so it was the early 90s.
Okay.
Right. Now, I was still really young,
Hmm.
very young.
Too young to
Too
mention.
young. And so after that first year, after our son was born, it just really got, very difficult. So we would go back and forth,
Mhm.
as we do. Yeah, we would go back and forth. Finally was like, this can't happen anymore. Like, it's
Mhm.
not working.
Mhm.
I actually ended up pregnant again. But I
Mm.
mean, we had separated. We were in
Mhm.
a separation, and I'm like moving forward, and it happened, and so I ended up with my third son, and really, because I honestly felt that I would be able to work things out, to make things happen, to make things,
Mhm.
we could fix this.
Mhm.
Those things. We were young. I had to let him get some things out that
Mhm.
young men go through, and and I at that time they weren't deal breakers for me. The racial thing was,
Mm-hmm.
and because then it caused, I never forget. We used to go to this Mexican restaurant, and the menu was in Spanish,
Mm.
and I know a little bit, but
Un poquito,
un poquito, muy,
muy un
muy
poquito.
poquito. And so, I was pregnant with our son, and one of the waitresses asked, him in Spanish, like, "Oh, your second son." And he responded to her, in Spanish, thinking that I didn't understand. This one's my first. This is her second.
Mm.
And when we got in the car, and I said, "Why did you feel the need to tell her that?" And I said, "We've been coming here as a family. You've been here his whole life. And now why is it different?" And he got really, embarrassed,
Mm.
and that I understood. And he was like, well, it is. I want to be able to celebrate my first child as well.
Mm.
And I said, "I understand that." And I said, "I hope I'm not trying to take that away from you, but other people didn't need to know that because we're a family."
It's interesting that that is the comment that he made. And then I'm in my mind, I'm thinking about the back and forth and how we feel like we have to set aside to let these grown men who've made adult decisions to become parents or fathers or husbands to still then carry out this foolishness and the impact that it plays on us because we think it's going to benefit us in the end. It's going to work out. It wasn't a deal breaker. And because I went back and forth too with my son's father, and Duke was here, and we did an interview, and he spoke about it like, Mom, the back and forth, like 3 weeks, you know, gone, and then 2 months back, and then, 3 weeks back. And I didn't realize he even recognized and remembered because it really was like that. And the things that we do in relationships that are really unhealthy,
Yeah.
really unhealthy. Okay, so finish with second son comes.
So no, that example that I gave you wasn't. I'm just not willing
Hmm.
because we are friends. Where he's still, a part of. I'm
Right.
not willing to say everything that
No,
was
and I
said
get
or
that, and
that
I
happened. Yeah.
I
So
appreciate that even
when
still.
I make those comments, there are things that affected our son, that affected me back then, that I just
Yeah,
don't want to. Yeah.
that's because you're a beautiful person.
Thank you.
That is because you have a heart of gold. And even though you have the mic and the opportunity to set the record straight from your point of view, no,
Well,
that's real character. And
people
I
change
appreciate
as
that.
well.
Hmm.
People change as well, and that's one of my models is give people room to grow.
Hmm.
A lot of times we don't, and we leave them stuck in that
Hmm.
place, and in our mind, that's how we respond to them. That's how we still treat them. We
Hmm.
go back to that hurt, and so I try not to do that because God doesn't do that to me. He has shown me so much favor and so much mercy with my bad decisions. And
Yeah,
so,
that's so good.
because it could be an instant. You hear of people when God has touched their life and they could be wretched. Then the next day, they're like, "I believe in God. I'm saved. He loves me." And they're on fire for the Lord.
Conversion.
Yes.
Hmm.
And so I don't want to dredge up all of the other stuff because they're now trying to make a change and be
Yeah.
better. And so I try to be more encouraging in that path than dredging up all of the other stuff that they did, or said, or the
Yeah.
hurt.
30 years ago, almost 30
Right.
years ago.
Yeah.
No, that's so good because we do. People will hold you hostage to who you were, generations ago, decades ago, and never let it go. So kudos to you for that. And that's encouraging, or we encourage that to all right parents and single parents. If you're divorced, if the relationship didn't work out, like hopefully we're not operating still from a broken place of
Right.
anger and resentment and unforgiveness, because that becomes a weight, a burden for you. The other person's off living footloose and fancy free, growing, trying to change, becoming a better person, and you're still held captive because you won't release what happened to you decades ago. And there's really liberty in that, and God can help you heal from that because you really can't heal as long as you're holding on to it.
Right.
Because I want to clarify something. You said something a little while ago, and it sounded like there was a second pregnancy with him, but you just were referring to the same pregnancy with Danny.
There was a second pregnancy with him. No, actually, before I got pregnant with Danny, I had a pregnancy. I had a stillborn. It was also a boy.
Mm.
Yes.
I don't think I ever knew that. Wow.
Yeah, it was a boy, and so I had my son. I had a stillborn, and then got pregnant with my second son, Danny, with him.
Mm.
And by then we tried to do it right, married, all of that stuff, that we hadn't with the first pregnancy, and yeah.
So, so can we talk about the stillbirth
hmm
because it doesn't happen a lot, and like I said, I don't know if I remember that. Maybe I knew it. And did you have a full pregnancy or
I
was
had
it?
a full pregnancy. I forgot how many weeks I was, but I was like 7 months, and
Mm.
that's how, yeah, it was fully developed. At the time I went to the clinics, they're the ones who said, oh, well, you have this, but my blood pressure was high, and so I couldn't
Mm.
keep going to the appointments because it was low cost, but it still cost.
Mm-hmm.
And still really being that independent spirit, it was
Mm.
a lot going on, and so just not taking care of myself really.
Mm.
When it happened, he was at work. I wasn't feeling well, but I remember telling when I went to one of the doctor's visits, I was like, I don't. She gave me the nurse had given me a card. She said, "You're going to see the doctor on the next appointment. Right now this is just one of your checkups." And she gave me this card. If you start feeling this or that, call emergency. And I looked at the card. I said, "My blood pressure is already really high." I said, "I'm experiencing all of these symptoms." And she said, "Oh, no, well, maybe we made a mistake. Maybe you're not as far." And I was like, I stopped feeling the baby move like the next day,
Wow.
after she had told me how high my blood pressure was. And so, yeah, I ended up like really going into full labor. And I remember calling my mom, like, hey, she didn't live that far from us. And I said, I'm going to drive over there. I drove myself to the hospital.
Wow.
And when I got to the hospital, like I could feel the baby. I was like, Mom, I'm not going to have this baby here. And they had prepped and everything to, if the baby survived, like they would have
Mm-hmm.
to take it into,
ICU, Nick.
ICU or
Mm-hmm.
pre, whatever it's
Yeah.
called, in
Wow.
prenatal, I'm saying it wrong, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So yeah, and when he was born, they were like, I could feel the room shift. Like,
Mm.
nah, and they told me that, like, he had it had been a few days, and so again, this happened a few days or so after I had my
Mm-hmm.
appointment. When I was telling her, and with the blood pressure, with all that, it can cause that, and so
Mm.
but they showed him to me, and nobody was there at that point
Oh
because
wow! It happened so
it
quickly.
happened so quickly. My mother had to, take my oldest son, so take Antoine. So, yeah, um, I think I handled it well. My mom kind of laughs. They did come, but I wanted a girl. I didn't know what I was having at that time either.
Mm.
And I was like, oh, and they were like, yeah, it was a boy. And I looked over and I was like, another boy. I know this sounds kind of harsh, but I was like, okay.
You didn't really want the baby.
I was with all of the things that were going on. It was very difficult,
Mm.
and I had already had,
Mm.
a
Mm.
son, so
Wow.
it was difficult when things got kind of put back in order. Then I felt like this
Yeah.
was a good time. Yeah,
Yeah. Wow.
like,
Such a traumatic experience for a young woman. And what I'm thinking of is in our youth, we are so different than the women we become.
mm,
Yeah, because there's so much there that you're just not adequately, taking care of your body to rest and recover from that to the next one. And the appointments or being on his medical, like all the things that could have, should have, like we just don't make wise choices
right.
in our youth. And some young woman might hear this, right? And hear your story and have the same mindset, can relate to kind of what you're saying, but there's healing that needs to take place. And God is gracious. So even if you lose the baby, my mom shared her story about a stillborn baby as well, and some people feel like it's the end and it's their chance of having a child is over, but it's not the end. You can recover. Just heal in between and go through the process for your recovery. So that's good. There's a lot there. I'm glad you're sharing all this, and we get a chance to unpack it because it's a journey, right?
Mhm.
Maturity, growing up is a journey. It's a process. It just doesn't happen when you turn 21.
Right. Right.
That it's just no magical number that you just become an adult and you have all the answers. It is it's a journey. And even now, we still learn, we're still maturing, we're still becoming more wise. And so all this helps. All this helps.
What for to what you just said, that we're still learning and we're still maturing. I do suggest that we keep our hearts, our minds open to learn, to continue to learn from one another. Sometimes people are guarded because there's so many things out there, so many places where they can learn from. And I just say keep an open mind. I never really had to share that. I don't even know if my children know. I thought I had shared that with you before. I'm not sure, but I do hope that it does help someone, and I try to help my own children with that, with my stories, because I don't want them. I am the type of person who tries to learn from other people's mistakes. If I see something, and I'm like, "Ooh, that hurt them," or I'll go in a different direction or say I don't want that for me. But however, I do know that some people are like, I want to experience it on my own. I know you told me it was hot, but I still want to touch it and, see like how much am I going to get burned, or then how long is that going to take me to heal? I'm not that person. If you tell me it's hot, that it'll burn me, then I'm kind of like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm
Me
good.
too.
Yeah.
I don't have to
Yeah.
get burned.
But
Thank you.
yes, but for those of you who do want to experience, and some of my children are that way. I'm still there, always talking, because I want to be able to give people tools, I
Mhm.
should say, to be able to pull from. If I don't say anything and just say, "Oh, it's your life, figure it out,"
Right.
that's why I'm going to go back to this. They come with instructions. I told one of my sons that I was going to come and do this podcast, and I told him about your book. And so I didn't even think about it being for males, to be honest. I really didn't. And he said, "Oh my gosh, it's so impactful." And I'm like, "Yeah, biblical principles to raising your children." And he was like, "Wow." Like the title of the book just, you know, came out and touched his heart and mine as well. When you told me, I was like, "Oh my goodness." Like, absolutely. Like, we do need that. Because we do grow up in like, hey, yeah, my bad. Like, y'all didn't come with instructions. We're doing
Mhm.
the best. And that's how I am in my life. Like, I don't always make the right decisions. Even when I ask God, sometimes He lets you make decisions, and that helps to strengthen you so you can grow and you can learn. And I'm like, "Ooh, ouch, that hurt," or whatever. And so but he has given us the tools, and he wants us to use those tools in those situations. Like, girl, I've already told you. It's already written. You've already read it. You already know. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I could let me grab this. This is written, and that is what you did, in this book. And so I'm
Praise
so
God.
grateful.
Definitely a God thing. My little wisdom is so limited, but he certainly is behind it, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful to have the platform to just really be able to help people because just as we're talking, you make so many mistakes, and it wasn't until hindsight, that I was like, these kids is grown and they in one piece, and I didn't lose my mind, and I didn't
Right.
kill nobody, and really it was just because the whole time I was just trying to please God. I was just trying to please God and getting them grown and living how I lived my life. And then in hindsight, realized like all this time I was really just I was following God's word
Right.
and it's been there the whole time. So thank you for that. Glory to God, glory to God, glory to God.
Amen. Amen.
And then you have the younger two
I have
sons.
the younger two sons. And even right now, as men, so right now I'll say my oldest is 35 and the youngest is 26.
Hmm.
And the youngest two, their dad is not in their life. And just recently, I am seeing how much that impacts them or has impacted them. And one of my sons made a comment that how does a man, he said it this way, forgive me, but drop his seed, know that he's, this seed has grown and is a person and does not look back, try to contact them, try to see. He was like, we're good people. How do you walk away from that? How do you not want to be a part of that? He said, I don't understand that. And so I, I'm getting teary, but when he told me, I'm sitting at the table like, I remember when he was about 8 or 9. He had did something at school and they actually like 5150 him. And yeah, it was a big thing. The school district was wrong, I'm going to say, in the way that they handled things, but it helped me when I talked to the counselor that was there. He said, I have to get him out of here. He said, this child is so intelligent. He said, but the doctor ended up saying what he's experiencing is it's a form of bereavement when your parent has not died or someone has not died, but they have broken the relationship in such a way that now he's grieving and still trying to. And I'm like, oh my goodness. He was very young when I got married and when I got, remarried. And so I didn't know that it affected him. And even now he says, I'm very grateful to Dad, which is my husband. He said, I'm grateful for everything that he took on the responsibility, that he's always, here for us. I'm very grateful for that. He said, but I can't stop thinking of how this man,
Mm.
really deserted us. And so it brought me back to that time. Even though I received the information, I thought I was trying to be there for him and that was going to help to heal him. But the healing has to come from the person who did it
Mm.
because he is still alive. And, so since then, that son has gotten married. And, they plan on having, children. And he's like, he's missed graduations and all of these things. And we've reached out to him and he just doesn't even reach out. I don't even know like really where he is. And so that has been difficult. And so for my youngest two sons, that was their life, but they had my husband. So the other one feels differently. His dad, they would be in contact with one another, but his dad had told him, he had asked him, I guess, if he paid child support.
Mm.
And as a single mother, I'm going to say this. I'm not going to say that it was right or wrong, but I had as many children that I myself could take care of because I had that single independent spirit. Even when I, had been married, because our marriage operated on a 50-50. Even though he made more money than me, I still had to give the same amount. And so because we operated like that, I remember one time asking him for I needed some money, and he's like, "For what?" And that independent spirit kicked in and said, "Oh yeah, I'll never ask him again." So I just worked harder, which wasn't good for my children because then those days, long nights when I worked overtime and things I could have been spending with them, and all just so that I wouldn't have to ask him. And so operating in that spirit isn't always great.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It does make us strong women. Like I said, I had as many kids as I could take care of, so I never asked for child support.
Mm.
And so he asked his dad, and again, now I'm married, and I'm like, we're fine. Of course, it was difficult. It was 8 of them now, and so he said, I will never give your mother anything.
Mm.
And he said, well, what about me? And he says, well, anything that I do, I'll do for you directly. And so my son came to me and he asked me, he said, Mom, how come you didn't make him pay child support for us? And I told him the same thing. We have dad, and then I had as many kids that I could take care of in case it was like my safety net. In case they walked away, I knew that I could handle these four, you know? And so he said, I said, you guys haven't had a bad life. Anything he would have did would have been extra. I work hard, my husband worked hard so that you guys can have things. Things are difficult, yes, but you guys have a good life. And he said, yes. He says, but I'm going to ask him. He said, every time I talk to him, I'm going to ask him for something. I'll never stop asking for him for stuff. And he did it up to a point up until, he decided he didn't want to give him things anymore. But if they wanted a computer, shoes, expensive shoes, not whatever, he would ask him for it. And then I remember him saying, well, I need, clothes. Because he's like, I'm not going to ask you to do anything. You're doing everything. And you don't even ask him for anything. But the fact that he won't even do it to help us, to help you, and he had children with you, I don't understand. He's like, why would he want your life to be miserable? Even if he's only giving it to us, why wouldn't he help you?
Yeah, yeah.
And, children are.
They teach us.
They do teach us.
They teach us.
And then it became a point where he just didn't.
I don't ever want to give the impression that this is a platform to male bash.
Right.
This is not what this is about.
Right.
We are single women, or were single women, or single parents, or you know what I mean? And whatever led to those circumstances, what you're saying and what I want to reiterate, it's about the choices we make.
Right.
And you have mentioned several times about this independent spirit. And, by spirit, you mean attitude and mindset. And this is who I was. This is what I embraced.
Right.
And no judgment, because you said it. It's not, we're not going to label it as good or bad. But now that you are mature and wiser, do you feel like those were good decisions that you made back then?
That's a good question. Not necessarily.
And I want that to soak.
Mm.
Because again, we're helping single parents.
Right.
Where some single mom is listening to this and is in the point of making decisions on how she moves forward, how as parents we move forward. And so, I just want to offer that again, that the decisions that we make are not just impacting and affecting your today, and they will greatly affect your tomorrow. So choose you this day, choose wisely, what decisions you make, because it doesn't only impact you. You can be strong, you can be independent, you can be smart, you can accomplish a whole lot of things, but your seed, those children are affected by it. And so again, I'm not saying what you should have done, shoulda, woulda, coulda. Hindsight is 2020, but I do appreciate you offering that just really thinking about it today with what you know now. You probably would have made a different decision, and that's something to offer to young people or whoever's listening.
Right. So now I would definitely I would tell someone the story and then still tell them think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it a little more, because it does impact your child in your life. And because again, when they spoke and I realized, oh, it wasn't just me. He's like, Mom, why didn't you? Whether be it right or wrong,
Mm-hmm.
um, the decision still lies with the person,
Mm-hmm.
but for them to think about
Right.
that it may impact. And so I tell the story so that they could have all of the both sides.
Right. Right.
I can't give his side. I
Right.
can only give, how it impacted.
Right. Why they disappear. But it was my father that told me, because I had those same questions, and my parents were together, and I remember when, we I divorced, and my father told me, he said, "Babe, I I don't know what else to tell you except it's different for men." He said a woman would run out in front of a moving car to save her children and spare their lives. He said, but men are cut differently, and we can just walk away. And of course, he said that loving me, right, being compassionate of my circumstances, but what a hard truth to sit in. And so men are different. Not all men do it, but it's a truth that we experience. And there are ramifications of it. Sometimes they walk away and feel guilty, feel shame, feel remorse, regret, and and then too ashamed to come back. So I don't know. We can only speculate. There's so much I want to cover. Let's. I want to get to the underlying message of they come with instructions is kind of parenting God's way, right? Doing it God's way. And in your story, and I don't want to speak for you, maybe you didn't always parent God's way. When did the transition come, and how did that happen? Because I want parents to know that it's never too late.
Hmm.
It's never too late to start parenting God's way.
As God definitely had his hand on me, and I have friends that were Jehovah Witnesses, so I studied sometimes with them. I had friends that went to, like you, or just Christian friends or Baptist friends, and so God had his hand on me for a long time. Also, when I was 14, my dad became a born again Christian. My dad, who had, he was raised Catholic. Then he dabbled in some communist stuff, and then he did some Islamic stuff. So when he called me, he was like, he said, I've been born again. And I was thinking, Muslims get born again? Like, I was really confused. And, but again, I had my mom allowed me to find God on my own. And he definitely uh, guided me, and to the point where even at some point, I remember asking God, like, Jehovah's said this, Muslims say this about, who is your son? And then, he revealed to me. Now I stand flat footed, and I always tell anyone who is struggling with all of the different religions that are out there, ask God. He is going to reveal it to you. He is absolutely going to reveal it. You don't have to listen to me or to anyone. God will reveal it to you so you can stand flat footed. So while we were going through that transition, I took the youngest two. They were going with me to, we were going to a church, and I drive buses. And so I remember us going, going on church. We went to Magic Mountain and different things. And then the babies came. And so when they came, I stopped going to church as often, because now here I am. I wasn't married to their dad. And, when the youngest two came, and so we kind of stopped, but I still had my relationship and my faith. But, you're kind of going through letting life happen. So when I got married, that was one of the first things. Like, he had to be, a Christian. And my oldest son came and he said, Mom, I miss going to church. And he was probably about 12 at that time. He's like, I miss that, community. Like, we need to, go. And I was like, yeah, okay, we are. I know my husband had belonged to a church, but he at that point hadn't really been going. And my dad came, and they were visiting. And he says, well, Schinaeh, you know how we run our household. And so I wanted my stepbrother, to stay with us, because he was around, my children's age. And so I want him to stay. And he said, well, he has to be in church on Sunday.
He can stay,
He
but
could stay, but and so I didn't go that first Sunday, but my husband went back to his church. He took my oldest son and my stepbrother, and they came back. My son's like, "You're gonna love that church. You're gonna." I was like, "Yeah, okay." And so it took me a while, but I went, and I loved the church, and I'm still part of that church. But when I went and I connected, I knew that God was then really saying, oh no, I have much more for you. Even with me getting married, I had resolved in my spirit that I was going to be a single mother. It's going to be me and my boys. And God was like, oh no, this girl is going to ruin everybody. Her life, like, wrecked her, this whole world up. Like, no, I have something for her. And so he sent my husband to me. I remember praying a prayer, and then I said, like, maybe a year after I prayed the prayer, because I was like done with these relationships. Um, I remember being specific on what I wanted in that prayer, but then I again made the declaration, no, I'm not getting married. I'm good. We good. I'm good. And but the only way that I would get married is if, God really himself almost has to tell me, but he would have to completely knock me off my feet. And when my husband came, he absolutely did that. And I was like, this is, really God ordained. Again, this isn't for everyone, but for me, me and my husband only dated for 5 months before we got married. With me and my 4 kids, with him and his 4 kids, we dated for 5 months. He is like, he already knew what he wanted. God had already put in him, like, nah, I mean, because who really would want an additional 4 kids? It had to be God, right? At 5 months, who even knows and trusts anybody like that? When we got married, we joined. God was like, no, you guys are one. It doesn't matter. And my husband treated our relationship like that. I'm going to say that too for the single women out there who then do decide, if you're not ready to be one, both the man and the woman, to be one. And when I say that, uh, God is first, the relationship, the oneness between you guys are next. And so we basically had to treat our relationship like it's me and you against the world. God and then me and you against the world, children and everything. And that is difficult. And I don't have time to explain that, because it's not like you don't love your children, but God is telling us to train them up, right, in the way that they're supposed to go. But we want to be their all in all, and we don't trust anybody. With that, we've been parenting a certain way. Again, my oldest son was 12, and we've been doing things, and it's been working for us. We've been doing the best that we could at it. And here, who is this person to come in, and so I had to really embrace that as, a Christian woman wanting a Christian man. God sends me this person, and he's like, no, you need to fall under my word.
that's so much. That's so much,
Yes.
because I know of a woman now who is dealing with her kids, yelling at her and calling her crazy. Now they're adults. All of them are 18 and over. She's finally married in a happy marriage. Their father deceased, so it's not like there's any questions of loyalty. And because she's choosing to put her marriage first and establishing boundaries with her adult children, right? That they are so angry and they are so upset. But I thank you for reiterating that, because in teaching our kids, right, the way they should go is we teach them not to rely on us, because we are not their saviors. We can't come to their rescue every time they need us. We have to teach them and point them and lead them to God for whatever path, plan he has for them. And so it's not just with blended parents, but it's with, they're parents themselves. Even if you're married to your kid's, father, or father, you're married to your kid's mother. Like, we have to put each other first, and that's what becoming one looks like. You join marriage, commitment, decisions, you align, and then that carries down to the children. That's such a good message to reiterate and share that. I want to then know, it sounds like your oldest son was on board with whatever change occurred with how you began to parent and lead, but what about the others? Was it met with resistance? Was there a drastic change between how you parented?
Yes, it was met with resistance, but because of what you just said, I realized that that is what we're supposed to do uh, is lead them to God. That is a part of our training, is to teach them how to use the tools that God has given us. So I actually, they tell a story. I remember it, but don't. But my youngest son like really didn't want to go, and we were going like every Sunday. They were forced then to go. We had youth church, and so at the time they didn't understand the benefits of it, and so I would go whether my husband went, and I would make the kids go. And so we were there. Our family, we walk in and they're looking like the oldest son was in college, but all the other ones lived with us. So we filled a role. And I as I was growing in God, then they were also seeing the change, and they were like, that's fine for you, but not for us. Why do we have to be there all the time? It's like, you won't understand now. You won't get it now. You don't, you'll get it later.
Mm.
But I was also encountering people whose parents did not make them go to church, and they were feeling like this sense of, I want to know God, I want to belong, to God, but I don't even know. I said that I do believe in my heart, but am I saved? And they were questioning, and a lot of that comes because we don't have our children in church. We don't have them sitting in the pews, listening to the word, uh, assembling with one another. And even, when I said God had his hand, so we met in junior high school. And so we met there, and, you were talking about things of God. Why? Because you were raised, in that household. At the same time, my mom was allowing me to experience and learn God on my own. And God, again, was definitely with the different friends and things, so that now I can communicate with those people and know exactly, I understand. I know you were raised that way,
Mhm.
but I can talk to him about it because he allowed me to experience different religions. And so, well, being around and knowing some of their beliefs, and this still, you get God's word. I
Yeah.
learned to listen, to learn to, and that's what I'm teaching my adult children and my children as well. Learn to listen to what God is saying
That's
as
so
God
good.
speaks to
That's
you.
so good. I want to get it all in, but
I'm
you
sorry.
no, 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 this is good. And you mentioned, and this is the creed that I follow, and you said, and I'm just like, whoo wee, that you forced your kids to
Yes.
go. And as a parent, we have that authority,
Yes.
God given authority. Make them go. And that's what we encourage here on this platform, is to make your children go to church. However, comma, we cannot be removed from what your mom did, which was allow you, right, to find your own path. I don't even know if we have time to go into this, but I don't want to, because somebody's listening is going to point that out. Somebody's going to pay attention to that. Well, it worked for you in the end, but your mom still didn't force you to go one way or the
We
other.
did. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I was raised Catholic. I said that. We went to church,
Okay.
which is how I understood. But there were things that happened because I actually I went to it was in a first and second grade. I went to Catholic school. So again, I'm not trying to
You're
bring
not.
up everything,
Mm-mm.
right? So there were things that I kind of like questioned, and my mom didn't have the answers to them.
Mm.
So in Catholic church, we say the Lord's Prayer every mass,
Mhm.
and so I didn't realize that it was actually in the Bible. But I had an aunt who became a born again Christian, was going to a church, and I remember going to a Bible study and them breaking it down. Well, I went to church because my, again, but my mom let me explore other things. But no, I went to church.
Okay.
Yeah, I just went to Catholic church, and not again. I'm not putting down
Mm-mm.
Catholicism. It is part of who I am,
Of course.
and but right, it helped me to understand even
Oh,
Catholicism.
for sure. And
Right.
I think there's value. Like me, I was born and raised, Kojic. I'm thoroughbred Kojic, Church of God in Christ.
Hmm.
And sometimes people don't want to hear from me because of that. Whereas you have a more relatable testimony and witness because you have the experience of your dad being Muslim and Islam or being raised in the Catholic Church or even studying with the Seventh day Adventists. Like you have, sampled and experienced more things, and people might be more inclined to hear you now tell how God ordained your steps to really get to know his son Jesus Christ. So I praise God for your journey because there's value in each of our experiences and we can't be removed from that. One thing we must talk about is the generational curses
Mm.
because you shared with me, and I want you to share as much as you feel comfortable with, the death of males in your family
Mm.
and what you had an underlying concern about. Now you have this male seed that was given to you. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so my mother and father grew up together, and my grandmothers were best friends. She ended up getting pregnant with my brother, and the day she got pregnant with my brother, she told her brother, she had a brother. She's like, "Oh, we're going to be a part of the Beezer family," which is my maiden name. Oh, they were just so excited. We're going to be a part of the Beezer family because they just really loved my grandmother, my paternal grandmother. Oh my goodness, she loved her children. She loved family. She was just this woman. But she had went on a vacation, or she had went on a trip, and my uncle, my mom's brother, and one of my dad's brothers, and a friend were riding a mini bike, and they got into an accident. And out of the three, my mother's brother is the one who died.
Mm.
So my father's brother was injured, but he's still alive today. And so my mom, when she had my brother, she remembered, the whole, you know, we're gonna be a part of the Beezer family. She always thought my brother was going to die.
Mm.
She never told us that until years later. So I'm sorry. But she always thought my brother was going to die. My brother, when he was born, like how I say my oldest son has some of the same similarities with my brother. So she named him Darrell Antoine. Her brother's name was Anthony. So she did Antoine and, to the French version of Anthony. And so she said, "Oh, my brother used to have nosebleeds." Like a lot of things that my brother experienced, I guess, my mother, the same,
Brother.
it was familiar, yeah, to her from her brother. Around my brother's, just before his 16th birthday. So my brother's birthday was in January. He's actually born on my dad's 20th birthday.
Mm.
So they shared, the same birthday. And my dad had just came to visit us. He had just been born again. He had just told us he came to visit us for winter break. And so my mom, she said she was, again, I hear the story afterwards. She was rubbing her stomach, and she said God had given her this peace. And she's like, "Oh, he's like getting ready to be 16," because I believe her brother was 14, 15 or so. And so she had worried about him, his whole life. She's like, "Oh, thank you, Lord. Like you've kept him." And like 13 days before my brother's 16th birthday, he got killed in an elevator accident. My mother took it so hard, and she had always been this strong person, but I didn't know that she always expected that something was going to happen to my brother. Um, Before my brother passed, also my dad lost two other brothers, and two, three other brothers.
Mm.
My paternal grandmother, who was also this strong woman, she had 9 children. She lost 3 sons in a matter, I believe, of like 2 years. So her and my grandmothers are again suffering these losses, and my mother's having these feelings. And then I'm knowing about them. We have pictures at the cemetery where we're all dressed up. I don't know if it's holidays, but we're, going visiting, these.
Graveside.
Yes. And so I knew about them. When she told me that, it's hard not to put that in your psyche and think, oh, okay. So of course I didn't want children, and then I wanted a daughter, and then I have this son, right? And so,
These sons.
well, the first one,
Mm-hmm.
the first one caused me to give him immediately to God. At this time, I already, knew God. I saw how my mother had suffered, and I was like, this child is not mine. The God is loaning this child to me. However, long He sees fit, because I've had these women lose these children, and I was not gonna put that on my children. But the enemy tries to mess with you. So when my oldest son, again, I had these four, and I always say now, like maybe they were to replace. I don't, not like that, but um, but my oldest son, he was really good in school, and one of my cousins decided I'm gonna go get him a suit for um, his graduation. So my brother, for his ninth grade graduation, I can still remember the pictures. He had a tuxedo, black pants, white and black, jacket, black and white bow tie, and the whole thing. And my son comes in, he goes and tries the suit on
That your cousin bought for
that
him.
my cousin had bought for him. He took him, I guess, downtown. My son comes out in this white suit with this black and white tie and this black shirt, and I almost lost it, because even when you give your child to God, I was like, how is this even possible? He's never even seen the pictures. you know I, I, my mom had moved to Louisiana, so my son, he hadn't seen the pictures of my brother, and like how, and I remember the enemy, like I would be driving home from work, and he would put both of their faces would flash in my head, and I was like, oh my gosh, like what is this? And I remember talking to one of my cousins, and even my husband, because he knew my brother, and he said, like, not on my watch. Like, I rebuked that. That's not gonna happen. But at that time, is I was struggling with, and it's really because my mother had told me. So she planned it that, I don't know. Maybe I would have felt that way as her. I don't know, but um, I think that it was helpful that she told me. And I always say, just like, let us know, talk to us as parents, talk to your children. They don't know. And this is one of the things that I discovered when we are, say, even in an argument, it could be with a friend, a parent, grandparent or whatever, when we're disagreeing about something, and maybe we stop talking for a minute. And then the next thing we're like, oh, this is my bestie, or everything is fine between you and your your mom. They're like, how did you get there? We don't tell them how we got there, and we need to teach them that as well. How did you get there? What is that? Well, it's reconciliation, it's forgiveness, it's family, it's love, it's all of those things. And so sometimes we don't know. So I'm glad that she did tell me, but at the time I'm like, oh my goodness. But I was able, I was close enough to God to realize that the enemy was trying to attack me. And I was like, no, you can't have my son. And again, like I said, he's 35 years old. All my children have survived past all of my mother and my father's, siblings. And I thank God for it. But I gave all of my children to God, knowing that they weren't mine. That at any point he could have did the same thing, but and if that's what, I had to be okay with that. It had to be resolved. Lord, they're yours.
Mm-hmm.
Do with them as you will. I pray that that doesn't happen. I covered them, and then I gave them to him, and said, do as you will. They're yours. They belong to you. And I had to live my life and parent like that, because I did not want to live in the fear that anything could happen. My brother died in an elevator accident. That, who does that? That
Freak accident.
freak accident.
The enemy can't torture you or torment you with things that you release to God.
Yes.
The enemy cannot use manipulation or try to leverage anything against you that you've given to God.
Amen. Yes.
So the power and the liberty comes in releasing our kids to
Release it.
God. We're just conduits.
Yes.
They are not ours. He entrusts them in our care for us to then guide them back to Him
Yes.
and repeat the cycle.
Repeat the cycle.
So any opportunity of a generational curse was broken when you released your children back to God. And there's power in that. And I pray that that blesses somebody because that has blessed me. And your sons have lived beyond the ages, all four of them, of any of their great uncles or uncle that they even never had an opportunity to meet. I want to say that even though I was there, and we were in school together when Darrell passed.
Mm-hmm.
And and then we lost track. Like I was there at Antoine's like baby shower. I
Mm-hmm.
remember coming to that, and somehow for some years we lost contact, and so that's why I didn't know about the stillbirth or other things that might have happened. But God has a way,
Yes.
right? He's so faithful,
So
and I don't even
faithful.
remember where and when and how of reconnecting us. And I know that we have both been intentional about staying connected since then. And it's been, I don't know, over a decade now and many, many years. So I'm so grateful. I'm so thankful for our friendship. You are a constant. You have just never changed. Like what people see now is who you were when we were 12, and you have just always been confidently you.
Mm.
And that has blessed me and helped me. And I speak blessing
Thank you.
and healing over you and in your life. And I cannot close, and I know we got to. And I'm sorry I don't have any tissue, so take a deep breath if you need. But because now you've become a
Oh,
grandmother.
yes.
You become a grandmother,
Yes.
and you just got your from your direct seed. You have
Yes. My
others, but
direct seat. Yes.
your first granddaughter.
Daughter.
So tell me first, like what cute name are they going to call you? Have you come up with a cute name?
So I want to be called Grammy.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to
Okay.
be called Grammy. My grandmother was grandmommy. She was another. So she was a young grandmother. So she'd say, call me by my first name. And then and I did for years. And then when she got tired of it, but then just respect to the generation when she got tired, like we need to be able to change, and when our elders speak we need to be like okay with it. And she says, oh no, I need you to stop calling me by my first name. And she did, I want to be called grand mommy, not grandma, not granny, grand mommy. I said, okay, grandmommy. And I started calling her grandmommy. And then, our kids, my kids and, my siblings, they all, fell in, but they didn't have to call her. But I had to make the adjustment. And so, I'm going to say this. I'm very grateful to my children for making the adjustment. I have told them that for them to come in because we lived, like I said, in Palmdale. They had their own rooms. And then we moved to where they were sharing. Lord, the two girls shared a room. We had a 3-bedroom house, and that was some of the best times in their life. So, yeah, the 5 boys slept in the room with 2 bunk beds. The 2 oldest on one end, one of the ones, and the youngest ones had to share the top bunk. So, and they loved it. Their memories of that, of that struggle. Like we had talked about adding on another room. We had talked about, moving, but it was difficult. We had a swimming pool, and it's funny because my youngest son is like, we have a bigger house and all that stuff, but we had a swimming pool. Like our whole neighborhood, like he was happy about that. Like we weren't as bad. He was like, I know my birthday was in November. He was like, but all summer, any party, any birthday, it was easy to give. And that made it, our AC bill, our electric bill could be a little lower. Like, y'all better go get in that swimming. And so we made that work. But yes,
That is so
I did. Her name is Lottie James. And so, and she looks like me.
And so does your
And
grandson.
so does my grandson.
Looks just
It
like
looks like
you.
me. It's a different thing. I do have other grandchildren. I'm going to say that, and I love them. With all my heart. Our oldest grandchild is 16, but from my seed, I have a 2-year old and then a newborn. She was born April 17th. So, and my first girl, and so I
Congratulations.
had her last Saturday. I would not put her down. So yeah, they probably do need to keep her from me because I probably still have that same. I'm going to spoil her and do yeah.
Spoiled kids are not cute. You
They
get you
are.
you gotta
They're
love them.
loved.
You gotta love them, but don't spoil them. You ruin them. Don't
Well, I'm
spoil
gonna
them.
love them.
Yes,
Love her.
love
Love
her,
her. Love her.
love them as
Yes.
much as you have the capacity to love, because they need love. But please don't spoil them. Listen, we are out of time. I am so thankful. I am so appreciative that you have come and shared. And I know that you have blessed someone with what you have shared today. Thank you so much. Any last words before we just kind of wrap it up? Any thoughts, things that you thought we would talk about and maybe I didn't think to ask, or just anything, any closing remarks?
Not really. I wasn't sure exactly what you would ask. I guess I do want to add, like, be forgiving to yourself as a parent.
Mm,
Show a lot of grace to yourself. Um, because we don't always go to the source that will help us, but in your life, in your parenting, forgive yourself, be gracious to yourself, uh, and then show that on to others, and be it your children, your spouses, your ex-spouse, whatever. Show that, and do give people room to grow.
that's so good. That's so good. And children,
Yeah.
extend grace to your parents
Yeah.
because of just what you said. Sometimes we don't make the right choice because we're not relying on the source, but extend them grace and forgive them, and don't wait on their apology for your healing, but
Yes.
just understand that we do better when we know better. So that's just what we needed to close this program. Thank you, Schinaeh. And listen, to my viewing and listening audience, thank you for joining. I know you were blessed today. I pray you are encouraged. I pray that you will continue to parent God's way. And if you have not started, it is not too late. God still has a plan for your life and your children and your generation. So remain encouraged. Listen, if there is anything that you want us to talk about here on They Come with Instructions podcast, email me, let me know at TCWI at ReneeAndersonWritings.com. Like always, thank you for joining, and love and blessings.